Turning 50 at the prospect of turning 50 wasn't really that scary to me. I didn't think. Until all the pieces started kind of falling into place, or maybe falling out of place, however you want to look at it. I was living in Oregon, had been living there for 20 plus years, and had a good life. My husband had died many, many years before. I was raising a little girl and trying to make a living as a tennis pro in a rainy environment. But it was fine. I was coaching a young woman back in the late 90s who had wanted to be a touring pro, at least try it out. And so we came to Florida one year for some tournaments. One was at the Everett Tennis Academy. And while we were waiting in between matches, I noticed on the wall that Chrissy did a fantasy camp every year for 8 people, and I just sort of tucked that away in my brain as something I should do before I break my hip and can't play anymore. Chrissy was always my favorite player. She's a few months older than I. She had this steely demeanor on court. She was, the ice princess. She was everything on court that I wasn't, because I was just kind of out there whenever I played. So just tucked it away in my brain. Years later, my 50th birthday was rolling around, and it just wasn't as peachy as I thought it was going to be. My husband had passed away, my dog had died, my daughter was in college, I had this job that was less than fulfilling, and the day was rolling around in a few months, but the thought of Chrissy's camp popped into my mind. I thought, I'm going to do that. Nobody's going to do it for me, I'm going to do it. So I called the academy and made contact with a woman who would ultimately be my fairy god sibling. And she said, well, as luck would have it, you got the last spot. You got a cancellation spot. So she told Chrissy that I was 50 years old, I was a teaching pro, same age as she was, and coming to do this camp for myself, something I was doing for my 50th birthday. So I got here, had a wonderful time. Chrissy was enormously generous with her time and everything. And then as we were getting ready to part after the dinner, Chrissy gave me a hug and said, you need to come back. And I thought, okay, well, sometime down the road I'll save up enough money to do this again. And she said, no, just come back. I had no idea what that meant. But I just stuck it away in my brain. This was in February of the year before I turned 50 in May. So I kept in touch with my friend here at the academy, and every couple of weeks we would email back and forth, I would call, and we just kept the lines of communication open. My actual 50th birthday was rolling around, and things just started imploding. My soon-to-be ex-boyfriend was planning a 50th birthday party for me, and I could not face it. All this thought of turning 50, I thought I was just fine with it. Well, turns out it's not so fine. And I found myself that very day, Sunday afternoon, at the cemetery. And I was sitting on my husband's grave, banging the ground, cursing him. How could you? This is terrible. What's going to happen now? And this is the end. And then I thought, no, wait a minute. Maybe it isn't. What's going to make you happy? So I thought, well, this job isn't making me happy. Oregon's not making me happy. How about Florida? So I went home and didn't go to my 50th birthday party, and called Loretto the next day, my friend here at the academy, and said, what's going on in Florida? And she said, why don't you come out this weekend and find out? So I booked a ticket to Florida. Turns out I got a job offer, and turns out there is a place in this world for 50-year-old women who are former high school teachers and tennis teaching professionals. And that was the start of a complete new chapter. I went back to Oregon, sold my house, broke the news to my daughter that her mother would be moving to Florida without her, and she was enormously proud of me and continues to be so 7 years later. Dating after 50 is much, much different than it was old days. I find now, being 50, I don't try to please other people and try to be what they want or expect of me. I feel like I need much less permission in this world. I don't make apologies for the people I want to see or people I don't want to see. It's much freer at this point, and I'm able to be much more honest with other people about who I am and what I expect in a partner. So I think it's really kind of exciting in a very peculiar kind of way. This is not what I expected. Now, granted, the pool of applicants is a little smaller than it might have been 30 years ago, but there are some interesting characters out there if you look with a discerning eye.